And we are live on a Saturday with my wonderful master level patron, Teresa Martin. Teresa, how are you doing today?
Doing fantastic. Ready to talk about some EU?
I know it seems, I started this channel talking a lot about EU, obviously with the Rise of Skywalker and all that stuff. That's been so hot and so breaking that I've talked a lot about that, but definitely still a huge focus of this channel is definitely EU. So I am pleased and glad to have you on to talk just about the expanded universe, not even anything in particular, just our experiences and our likes and our dislikes. I'm sure the conversation will go in an awesome direction. So I'm really looking forward to it. How has your weekend been?
Oh, it's been great. I'm just after getting back into town. I was out for the holidays. And so this is my recovery day. Got in on the airplane last night. So it's been very lazy.
Nice. That's good. That's kind of how it's been for me too. I'm still on a semi-holiday kind of from work for the next couple days. So I need to actually, shave. I've got one more day, then I have to shave. So I'm savoring it. I know it's not the best beard in the world, but I'm savoring what I can get. So before it has to go bye-bye.
Oh, but, for sure.
Let's see who we have here with us today in chat. What is this? Evil Befall. We gonna hashtag cancel Ryan too? I mean, I suppose that's up to you. That is up to you. I know a lot of people do. I know it's something popular that people like to try. You got Leia on Twitter constantly trying to do that. But I mean, let's be honest. Leia's kind of a joke. I don't know why anyone's actually afraid of that little dog. So just saying. Just saying. Tatsunami, what's going on? Apollo Patriot says, Daddy Pixel Ryan happening. No, we ain't going to have any pixels today. It's going to be a nice, a clear stream. I got plenty of bandwidth. We're ready to go. And look, Teresa's in chat.
Oh, saying hi to everyone. Yes.
Thick Karen, one of my newest patrons, who is based off a meme of my SWOTOR character, Thick Karen. So we'll say hi to all the patrons here in a little bit. Rosetta Allen is here. Wesley Semple. So Rosetta Allen is also a patron. Wesley Semple is one of our brand new patrons. So thank you, Wesley. Let's see. Graham Small is in the house. Hashtag Babu Frick. Hope everyone had a good holiday. Babu Frick. Yeah, some people like Babu Frick. Apparently that was all JJ's idea. That's what they say anyway. That's what they say. Teresa, did you see, I guess I haven't even asked you if you've seen Rise of Skywalker.
Yes, I have. And actually, Babu Frick was one of the best parts of the whole movie. He was only in like maybe 1 minute. He was the most original part of the whole thing. I thought he was adorable.
Well, yeah, I suppose. Yeah, he was a little, my thing was you introduced like all these random new, and he didn't really have a big role. I mean, he didn't really do anything, but Babu Frick was, just one of those cool little, he was actually a puppet. From my understanding, it wasn't just CGI. So, it was good.
Yeah. Well, it says a lot when a puppet who's only on for a few seconds steals the movie.
Yeah, that's the problem is we have so little care about these actual characters that Babu Frick steals the show. Yep. We got Jonathan Cortez in the house, Obsidian Monolith, fuck Disney. Yeah, I agree. Fuck Disney. Who else? Lily Patton saying hi to everybody in the chat. Hey, Lily. Christopher Barker. I think it'll be fun on the novel side of you to go forward and go backwards on the comic side. Yeah, I can see that. I can see that for sure. And we're going to talk about both of our different experiences in the EU. So it should be fun. And I should actually tweet this stream out. What am I doing? We got 48 people watching already. Guys, if you haven't already, if you haven't done so, could you smash that like button, share the stream out there? I forgot to even share the stream. So I'm going to do that right now before I forget. I'm just going to say, we are live, and tag Teresa. Boom and boom. There we go. Stream shared. Let's see. Who else? Oh, chat jumped on me. I hate that about StreamYard.
Yeah.
But, much respect to Teresa, Martin, and RK. Well, thank you, Thick Karen.
Thank you.
Lou M's in the house. What's up, Lou? Lou has been commenting on every single one of my videos, and I'm putting out a lot lately. So I know that she is watching each and every one. And there's a lot of people that watch each and every one and comment on each and every one, which I think is crazy. Jedi Batman. What are your thoughts on the Young Jedi Knight series with Jane and Jason? I love them.
Yes.
Yeah. Now those were not the young adult novels that got me into Star Wars, but it's something else actually that I love that were also young adult novels that got me into it. But we will talk about that.
Yeah.
Jedi from Jakku, Jeremy. You can't stop me. I'm a Jedi from Jakku. That is awesome. That is awesome. Whoever that is. I don't know. I always try to guess based on what denomination the super chat money is on from what parody accounts are who. And normally if it's Australian, I have a pretty good guess. But Mary Mayhem's in chat. Hey, yo, what's up?
Mary Mayhem. People
talking about burning effigies on her Minecraft streams. Craziness. She's having fun doing Minecraft. Matadon 23, good stuff from this channel. Well, thank you very much. I'm trying my hardest. On the mat with Dan Mateos. What's up? One of my actual IRL friends right there who just started his own YouTube channel. So
nice.
What's up, Dan? We do have a $2 super chat from George Big Dick Lucas. $2 back from vacay, just like some other people. Missed you guys. We missed you too, buddy. Glad to have you back. What is this? Lies from Genesis in the chat. Ryan loves Baby Yoda. That is just wrong. That is a lie. I denounced that. No. Let's see. What is this? Fatal J $2. Bro, I saw you on Andy Nerd Wars. Keep killing it. Yeah, that was forever ago, though. Thank you, Fatal. Fatal was on this stream, I think, last week. Always good to see you, Fatal. Thank you so much, man, for the super chat. I appreciate you. And there's Sherry Allen as well. Everybody is here. Even what an ass, what a bitch, what a cuck. So speaking of my patrons, Teresa is here. She's streaming with me. This is actually a December stream. She is my top tiered patron, which means she gets her choice of anything she wants to talk about on a stream with me once a month. And we decided that we were going to talk a little bit about the expanded universe.
Yes. I was going to say, we've talked already about it a little bit with I'm part of the EU book club, which anyone listening, go ahead and join it. It's a blast. We're reading Path of Destruction right now. Next week, I believe it's going to be. And but all the rest of the EU, it's so vast. And I think we all have many different experiences, right, Ryan, from how we got into the EU.
Yeah, absolutely. And so that's one of the things we'll talk about is kind of what got us started on the journey, because for a lot of people, it's very different. Fatal J says, Teresa sounds sexy. He is objectifying you in chat right now.
Oh, Fatal.
Yeah, but that's what we're doing here. That's why it's a patron stream. It was December. We pushed it back because, we're busy for the holidays and everything. So we're doing it in the first weekend in January. But speaking of, and Mary Mayhem says 69 in the chat, hit that like button. Yes, please do. I want to say, just like I do every stream, thank you. A verbal thank you to all of my patrons. Teresa Martin, Mexican Iron Man, Lost Jedi 22, Mary Mayhem, what an ass, what a bitch, what a cuck, George Big Dick Lucas, Rosetta Allen, Bionic Belly Button, RC from the NYC, Riff Magos, Thick Karen, like I said, one of our new patrons. Also, The Geek Blend, a new patron. So thank you both so much. Huge Ass, Seth Saunders, Kyle Hopkins, Alex McCarthy, Trev Fishbean, Geeky Candy, Wesley Semple, who I also see in chat, one of our new patrons. Thank you so much. And Mark Steven, one of our new patrons. Thank you so much, guys. I appreciate you. But those are my patrons who I adore. But with that being said, I did see something I saw in here. Someone said that Zana would wreck Ahsoka. And yeah, I think we all have to agree on that.
Yeah.
Even the Ahsoka fanboys and girls, if you knew Darth Zana, I mean, come on. But
Yeah.
all right. But Teresa, the Star Wars expanded universe, where did you get started?
I got started from the very beginning when it came out in 1991. So I was really able to experience it as almost like a trilogy of the movies, because at that time, we genuinely did not believe that we were going to ever get any other Star Wars movies ever again. George Lucas did not seem at all interested in doing the prequels. And we'd had several years with absolutely nothing, just maybe the occasional fanzine.
Mm-hmm.
And this was before the internet, now, mind you. So I'm minding my own business in the mall. So I didn't know it was coming. I just saw this big display. Star Wars, Heir to the Empire, continuing the story from Return of the Jedi. And if you can just imagine, you're minding your own business and you find out you're in the middle of the mall and suddenly it's like episode 1, Star Wars, and you didn't know it was happening. That was the feeling I got. I had no idea, absolutely no idea. And I was like, I ran to it and I bought it and just totally binged it. And then, we had to wait a year in between them. And what was so good about it was not just that it was more Star Wars. We were starving for more Star Wars. I mean, my friends, my siblings, but it was also so damned good. And it was exactly what we thought, what I thought was going to happen. They got a little bit more mature, but they were true to themselves. And of course, Mara Jade. We were all madly in love with Mara Jade.
I do think that is the consensus from most people. There are some people that I know that hate Mara Jade, at least how she was in the Thrawn series, because they just thought she was a little too bitchy. And she was until the end there. Then she definitely has a little bit of change once she completes her journey in the Thrawn series. And so that's interesting. And when you said the story after Return of the Jedi, that's how it was marketed. That's how it was on the back of the books. It said, the approved continuation of George Lucas's story after Return of the Jedi.
Yep.
Because that's exactly what it was. It wasn't just someone who decided that they were going to write a fan fiction and, George was like, well, let's make money on it. George Lucas was involved in the production. He directed Timothy Zahn to use some of the West End game stuff. Specifically as source material for it. He was involved in the process. And so I do think that's always something good to point out, because that is, as you know, ever since 2012 and really 2014, when they pushed aside the expanded universe in favor of continuing on with the new Disney canon, a clean slate for them. That's been like one of the huge criticisms all the way. This was always just fan fiction kind of thing. And, that's just not the case. It was all officially licensed and all had to be approved by George before it was published.
Yep. Absolutely. So it was mad excitement, and all the way up into the vision of the future where Timothy Zahn was able to bookend that first era. It was like one big, long, continuous story. It was almost like reading the MCU. It's almost a 10-year arc, and even though they were all kind of released out of order, it was what it was. And gosh, I'm just having memories now. It was so much fun, and I think that it's because the sequel trilogy took away a lot of that joy. It was such a buzzkill. That's why I'm myself revisiting it, and I think other people are wanting to revisit or find it, because we want to get back that fun where Star Wars was just something we all enjoyed doing and we could just nerd out about.
Yeah, exactly. And it's funny because I remember we used to have arguments all the time. It wasn't so much maybe on Twitter as much as it is now. It was more on Facebook. in Facebook groups and everything like that about specifically the Star Wars expanded universe. You know, people have been arguing about Star Wars ever since Star Wars came out. That's how nerd and geek fandom kind of is, right?
Mm-hmm.
You know,
Yeah.
because that's just one of the things. You get invested in this lore, and people are interested in different parts of the lore. People think that different eras may be better. You know, you might get judged because, well, you didn't read this part. I read all this source material. I read all this source book, and you didn't, kind of thing. And that's kind of always how it's been.
Yeah.
But back then, it wasn't. Well, if you don't like this. If you don't like Heir to the Empire, you must be a sexist, racist, bigot or something. You know, that's kind of what it's turned into now.
Yeah, and that's just a sign of the times, because it's only part of the last decade. That's why I think we're all excited about the new Roaring 20s. It's like, okay, let's all lighten up a bit, because you weren't judged by your entertainment. Entertainment wasn't a church sermon. The idea was you got your sermons when you went to church. You went to entertainment to get your entertainment.
Yes, exactly. And so, I remember, on Facebook groups and stuff like that, always these versus matchups, who was the most powerful Jedi? Who's the most powerful Sith? Who would win in this battle? That's the kind of stuff we used to have fun arguing about and getting into. And, those were definitely the days. Or when the Clone Wars was out, people arguing about, different timelines and if something was really going against previously established lore, things like that. But, for me, since you were right there, you got to experience Heir to the Empire. You got to experience Heir to the Empire as it happened. My story is a little different. I watched the original trilogy on VHS or something. I think my dad probably had the special edition releases, because I remember the VHS case that it came in. So I remember watching those, and I was like, okay, Star Wars, because everybody kind of knew about Star Wars. But it wasn't until The Phantom Menace in '99, I went and saw that in theaters, and the hype was just out of this world. And I fell in love with Star Wars, and I wanted to consume everything. And at my school, they had these little, like Scholastic magazine things where you could order books out of, and you take it home to your parents and they order books for you. And one of those in there was a Jedi Apprentice series, and it followed a young Obi-Wan. Obi-Wan's like, I think 12 or 13 years old in those, and is about him starting his apprenticeship to Qui-Gon. And it's for young adults, definitely. They're probably like maybe 200, 250 pages, something like that. And I got those, or my mom got me like the first two, and I was hooked. And so I just started getting all of those I could, because it continued that story. Well, not continued, but you got a little bit of prequel to the story we see in the Phantom Menace. Then when I was at my uncle's house, my uncle, very much like you, had bought all of them as they were coming out. And he sees me reading, like burning through these books that they're not a high reading level or anything like that at that point. But he sees me burning through them. He's like, I have something I think you'll like. And he goes to his shelf, and and I still have his copy, actually. Let's see if I can find it here behind me. Probably should have got it. But Heir to the Empire and the Thrawn trilogy, as well as all the X-Wing books. And so I sat down and I read Heir to the Empire like as fast as I could, and I was just absolutely hooked.
Oh yeah. Oh, that's lovely. Yeah. Well, and I remember the Jedi Apprentice series. That was one that I read. By that time, I was an adult. I was finishing up college, but I read it. I read those. I loved them, even though I wasn't quite the target audience, and especially young boys tended to like it a lot. But I thought it did a very good job of Obi-Wan's character development, and even Qui-Gon, and how they got the master and apprentice thing going. And we actually would all be looking at it and trying to find clues, because we all wanted to wait for the Attack of the Clones. And they made a little bit of an error in one of them, where Obi-Wan, do you recall this, was thinking about his original family, and he's like, yeah, my brother Owen. And we were all like, oh my gosh, he's his brother. But Attack of the Clones changed that.
Yes, yeah. Yep. And that is one of the interesting things, because like with Heir to the Empire, since that was written in 91, they refer to the Clone Wars in Heir to the Empire because when they were constructing the EU, they went based on what was in the movies and what George had told them about certain things. So George, as we know, likes to change his mind sometimes along the way. So he shifted the time frame of the Clone Wars just a little bit. He didn't really know what it was going to be. Like you said, he had the prequels in mind, but it wasn't something that he necessarily thought was going to happen right then. And he changed a lot of things along the way. So you have little things like, well, it was written before the Clone Wars were established. So, but yeah.
Yeah, and in the Thrawn trilogy, I felt that Timothy Zahn did a very good job of talking about the Clone Wars while remaining quite vague about the details.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, he did
exactly. Yeah, and it's kind of like now you're it feels like you're hit over the head with any like references they can possibly make, whether it be like about parsecs or like anything like that, to be like, hey guys, Star Wars, this is Star Wars too, and they hit you over the head with it. This is Star Wars. This one they just kind of casually will put it in there to help build the world, instead of trying to remind you of that.
Exactly. Well, yeah, and there wasn't, like you said, it wasn't like no one expects the Spanish Inquisition. What can I say? It wasn't like there were people around there shining white lights in your eyes either. We were just having fun with it. I think the rise of the internet changed a lot of that. There was a website, theforce.net. I think it's still around, but that was the hub where most of us all kind of gathered around when there was the first websites. And I think that was when a little bit of the snarkiness was able to go global. If there were any snarky or any little things, it was just like within your family, your local book club. There was a Star Wars club at college, but it wasn't. You weren't able to start fighting with people in Russia, for crying out loud.
Yeah, that's true. It has definitely gone so global, and I think that's one thing that for me, growing up reading these books, I was carrying them around school, and I'd read them like during breaks or whatever, because I was just so into it. And there was like nobody that I knew at my school, not really, that read them as well. Maybe once in a while I'd find somebody who was familiar with them or whatever, but it also wasn't cool. Like it wasn't mainstream. Like it seemed like so much geek and nerd culture is now. So maybe that's part of it too, but you didn't realize how many people really were also into these, because these are always on the bestseller list. Like so many of these, the Expanded Universe books made it to the bestsellers list, and you didn't know who was reading them. But once the internet comes around, you're able to find more people. You realize how big the fan base really is.
Yeah. There's also been some sociological studies, believe it or not, about the way fandom's been developing, because people like me, in the 70s and the 80s, we grew up and we started reproducing, and you got a little baby and you're like, hey, this is Luke Skywalker. He's awesome. You will like him. Here for Christmas, little niece, you're gonna get a Princess Leia doll. And then that we spread the message.
Yeah, those geeks sign the paychecks now, says Wesley.
Exactly.
Yeah. But
work for your jobs, we're your bosses now.
Yeah. So, and like if you just happen to be joining the stream and aren't quite familiar, you subscribe to my channel for my Rise of Skywalker stuff. When we talk about the EU, when we talk about the Expanded Universe, we're talking about basically everything that was published outside of the movies for Star Wars. So we're talking about video games, comic books. For I think both of us, really, the novels were what we really got into a ton, that were published between 1997 and 2012 when Disney bought Star Wars. Well, even after that, there were a couple after that as well, because it were still in production. They hadn't officially done away with the Expanded Universe at that point. But and Red Gaze, here we go. We're talking about real Star Wars. That is true, Red Gaze. That is true. Yeah. and yeah, I think that's something people forget too. It's not just the books. And that Star Wars girl's here in the chat too. The good stuff before the dark times, before Disney. Abso-freaking-lutely.
Yes.
And yeah. And, you know, it's like, I think people forget about the games too sometimes, because so many people nowadays are familiar with KOTOR and KOTOR 2, or, you know, Jedi Knight, Jedi Academy, or Shadows of the Empire. I think we're going to talk about a little bit later.
Okay.
They don't realize that those games are the expanded universe.
Yes.
You know, it's all connected, and the way that it was woven and the way it was written, the way it was planned out by Lucasfilm is really something incredible. So let's go ahead and get into that. Like, what is your favorite? Because the EU is so vast. It goes 25,000 years before the movies, all the way up to 150 years after.
Yeah.
And Anna says, "Shut up, Karth." Yeah. If you've played KOTOR, you know that sometimes Karth wants to talk to you, but he really doesn't want to talk to you. But he'll talk your ear off anyway. So that's funny. But what was your favorite part? Not even necessarily favorite book or anything like that, but what was your favorite experience reading the EU?
Besides, of course, the Heir to the Empire, Thrawn trilogy, it would probably be the comics of the X-Wing ones and the various Mara Jade comics. Those I really got that. Well, okay, anything Mara Jade. Okay, I found, but they had some really good Mara Jade ones. Some after Heir to the Empire, but they went back, and there was one where when she was the Emperor's Hand, it was by the Emperor's Hand, I believe, the series, the comic series. And so we got to see her when she was working for Palpatine. And that was really fun for me. I never actually played the games. My brother did, so I'd sit and watch him play them. So I knew kind of the stories about it, but so KOTOR doesn't quite have the same place in my heart that it does for other people. And I didn't really get into the Old Republic or any of that. So I'm looking forward to digging into it.
Yeah, I know that's one thing I've heard so much too recently, just because Disney, like you said, has turned so many people off to their brand of Star Wars right now. You know, that's definitely something that a lot of people are getting back into it. A lot of people are you know, picking up where they left off in the EU or finding it for the first time. So yeah, it's pretty awesome. And I see Sherry Allen in chat looking forward to the new trilogy of Thrawn Chiss Ascendancy books. Yeah, so those are not actually expanding universe; those are Disney canon. However, that is, I will say, from what I've read of Disney Star Wars, the Zahn stuff is the best because it is Timothy Zahn, and although it's not quite the same Thrawn, it's fairly close. So I'm sure that series will be good. I can't see myself being very interested in it. But yeah.
If there's anyone that would have to do a butchered version of Thrawn, I would rather it be Zahn, because he's the one who wrote it. Though there's just a part of me that's like, until I hear perhaps from people like you or others that it's good, you know, you all read it so I don't have to, you know, I'll wait. I'll wait to hear, because I don't want to get hurt like that. I hate to use the word traumatized, but the last
you got PTSD from Disney Star Wars.
Yes, I mean, I really do. And it was at Christmas time when The Last Jedi came out. So I just don't want to. It sounds. I don't want to get hurt like that again. It's like, why? Why torture myself? But I know that if I go backwards with the EU, it'll be okay.
Yeah.
Oh boy, it's like the Christmas special in Downton Abbey where they killed off a major character by getting hit by a milk truck. That's what it felt like. What they did in Star Wars to Luke Skywalker. You know.
Yeah. When, like, for me, I was like so bitter and out of it like immediately. So Last Jedi didn't have that same effect on me that it did on a lot of other people. Because I was already in that spot when they got rid of the EU, to be honest.
Yeah.
And like for me, especially for me, because my favorite part, my favorite part of the expand universe is definitely the post Return of the Jedi stuff. So especially like when you get into New Jedi Order and beyond, and to me, when Disney bought Star Wars, I really thought that we were going to get some adaptation of that, something along those lines, because when you look at the timelines, Crucible, which I don't think you've read yet, Teresa. But Crucible is like essentially the last novel in the timeline that's released. That's about like 43, 45 years after A New Hope. And The Force Awakens came out 38 years after A New Hope. So the timelines would have worked perfectly for them to, carry on there and move on, or take a story like Legacy of the Force and adapt it as their own. Obviously, you couldn't quite do exactly the same thing. I know a lot of people would have loved to see the Thrawn trilogy as the sequel trilogy. I don't know if I think that is so beloved, it'd be hard to do, because so many of us would be like upset if they changed little things about it. How do you think about that?
I think it's too late to do a sequel trilogy based on the Thrawn. I was hoping that when they said they were going to go ahead and do the more movies, 7, 8, and 9, I was hoping they were going to go ahead and do the Thrawn trilogy and just age them up. I think that they could have done it. Maybe the Mara Jade story would have had to have been adapted, but they could have done a lot of what they did in the Thrawn trilogy. But to do otherwise, they would have to recast, and that would be a disaster.
Yeah, exactly. And that's why I thought, I'm like, all right, all these guys are old. In Crucible, they're old. Crucible, it's so perfect because I know you're not there, but for everybody in the chat that has read it or is trying to or whatever, Crucible is kind of like a bridge in the expanded universe. And it's unfortunate that it ends up being a bridge to nowhere at this point. Yeah. But it was supposed to be a bridge to the next big event in Star Wars EU. And it's kind of Luke, Han, and Leia's last real big adventure together before they really hand the reins over to the next generation, kind of for good, and start to take a step back. Which is why the next part of the sequel trilogy or episode 7 could have been right after that. Them coming back, them having a big part in that first movie, introducing your new characters, introducing the world, not just EU fans, to Jaina Solo, to Jagged Fell, to Ben Skywalker. That could have been like your 3.
Don't even start. I'm almost crying thinking about what they could have done. Wouldn't that have been amazing? Because I was in love with Jagged Fell. It's very rare I fall in love with a person that's only in a book, but oh man, would that have been something? And then the son of an ex-Imperial, and with Jaina, the real Ben.
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah, and it was just so, it hurt. I guess like I said, when Force Awakens, that movie hurt for me when they, show Han and Leia have this broken marriage. They have a child who's not Jason. They have a child whose name is Ben. They steal. Not only are they trying to make it a bastardized version of Jason, like his conflicting emotions and him turning to the dark side, but they use the name Ben for him. It was like it hurt when I heard Han scream Ben.
Yeah, it was Frankenstein Solo.
Yeah, like that was my Last Jedi moment. The Force Awakens, the 93% audience rated or whatever the hell it was. Force Awakens was my Last Jedi.
Yeah, I was devastated by what they did to Han and Leia, and I think that I forgave them a bit because I was thinking, well, I want to still see Luke. I had the disease that Jeremy from Geeks and Gamers had. I think I was slightly in denial. I was like, okay, well, something's going to come. Something's going to come. So I wasn't. I was only half devastated.
Yeah.
But you're exactly right. What they did to Han and Leia, it made everything that had happened with them absolutely meaningless. Absolutely meaningless.
It destroys Han's character,
Yeah.
What we saw, happen in 4, 5, and 6 when Han goes from just a dude who only cared about himself, only getting paid, whatever, to struggling with that in Empire, still like caring about these people, but still having to deal with his own stuff, to then in 6, finally a guy who's leading an army, who's devoted to the cause, all of that stuff, devoted to his friends, just right back to where he was before. It's just such a waste.
Yeah. And also Leia, in my humble opinion, was also as equally destroyed. She ended up a failed mother, a failed leader, because the First Order came back, so she must have sucked at where that happened.
Oh, the New Republic was nothing, evidently, just useless.
Yeah,
evidently. So
and of course failed in her marriage. Hell, it looks like she even failed as a sister or as a brother. They all failed each other. Talk about some nihilism. I mean, gee whiz, I want to go and watch Schindler's List to cheer up after that,
Yes. Oh, God. Yeah. So that's enough about sequel trilogy getting us angry. Let's talk about the stuff that makes us happy.
Yeah.
For me, at the same time when I was getting into the EU for the first time was also when New Jedi Order was being published. And, New Jedi Order takes place 25 years after A New Hope. It's when Luke Skywalker has successfully rebuilt the new Jedi Order, and he has, at this point, essentially a couple hundred Jedi that are at different stages of training over 20, 25 years. He's done this, and so it's so interesting to see him successfully building Order, but still very hesitant because it's all new to him. He's kind of flying by the seat of his pants, and you have all these new characters that you get incredibly interested in. That you're introduced to, but you still have Luke at the top of all of it. And New Jedi Order was very dark, I will say, darker than a lot of the Bantam novels, like when you first started getting into it, Teresa. But I absolutely loved it. And that's, I burned through the EU because I picked up Star by Star randomly at a Walmart in like 2001 or something. And I started reading it. I'm like, this is like halfway through the series.
Oh, so I was going to say.
So I had to stop, and I read like everything that I could so I could get into New Jedi Order as fast as I could.
Oh, yeah. Definitely it was the more adults of them. There was a lot of darkness, a lot of death, a lot of torture, psychological torture, and it was very adult, and you genuinely didn't know what was going to happen. They really succeeded in making you think that everything really could be destroyed.
Oh yeah, they definitely pop that plot armor immediately. In nearly every book, a character that dies.
Yep.
Not just some random unnamed red shirt like in Star Trek. An actual character, a named character, whether they be from the movies, some of them were, named characters from the movies. They might not be super important characters, or they may be super important characters.
Yeah.
And we won't spoil that for anybody, even though it's been 20 freaking years. But I love New Jedi Order, and it set up everything for me as an Expanded Universe fan going forward in that post-EU era. Did you have a favorite? I'd say, like, even though Legacy of the Force is probably my favorite story, that New Jedi Order is probably the one that had the biggest impact on me.
Yeah. You mean was there one that had a big impact? As far as a big old raw emotional impact, probably, believe it or not, it would have been the X-Wing series.
Yes.
It's very lighthearted, but don't be deceived by it. There were deaths. There was a lot of betrayal. and they had such a blank slate that they could do with Wedge because we didn't know too much about him. And nobody was safe in it because besides Wedge, everyone was a made-up character. And then you had characters like Corn Horn, and it was intense. And when I was reading those, I really started to fall in love with their kind of band of brothers things. They really wrote that really well about how these X-Wing pilots would do anything for each other. That camaraderie that you only see in combat. So it was very moving.
Well, and Michael Stackpole actually did a ton of research talking to different pilots from many different eras, from like World War II, Vietnam, current day. At that point it was the early 90s, I believe, mid 90s, somewhere around there. Mm-hmm. But yeah, for sure, he did so much research about that camaraderie, about interestingly enough, if you remember, in Rogue Squadron, Wedge is very much trying to stay detached from everyone. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? Because he doesn't want to get to know them because he's seen so many people die. And that story actually comes from an actual pilot that Michael Stackpole talked to, where he would refuse to essentially talk to any new pilots until they made it through like 3 or 5 missions or something, because if you can survive that, your odds of surviving a long time are drastically increased, which is something they kind of talk about. I think the first 5 missions is what they mention in Rogue Squadron, if you remember that at all.
Dang, yes, but that's cold. I mean, not cold, but the fact that of course, why didn't I see that he got that from a real pilot? But yeah, no, I remember that because they really explored in that the psychological impact that Wedge and Luke to a certain degree had, because all of the people that they fought with died. Like, they were the only 2 survivors from the Death Star run. Mm-hmm. And most of their friends also then that they made after that were killed at Echo Base, and loads of them were killed at the Battle of Endor. So yeah, but that's intense that came from, I didn't realize it came from a real story, but it all makes sense.
Yeah, it is. It's so cool. And we'll talk about that, about like how they kind of built the series in a second. I have a $10 super chat. Thank you. $10 from Rosetta Allen. For an amazing friend who is so kind and down to earth. I appreciate you, Ryan, and hope your night is going well. Well, thank you, Rosetta. I hope you are doing well too. And I appreciate you. Thank you. One of my patrons, Rosetta. Thank you.
Hello, Rosetta.
Yeah. But what was I saying? Oh, the way that they built it, like you said, it's different from a lot of the other parts of the EU, where, especially in the Bantam era, that are so focused on the big 3, on Han, Luke, and Leia in some way, shape, or form. This one was about Wedge and some people you've never heard the name of before, right? Yeah. And then every once in a while, they'd bring the Leia in for a small part in one of the books. There was the part where they were, Wedge was talking to her while they were like relocating like government facilities or something because of some random reason. And Luke is in it a little bit at the end of 1 to talk to Corrin and a couple things like that. But for the most part, these stories are so focused on Wedge and a group of pilots that you grow to love.
Yes. And then they did the one several years later after they were all grown up, not grown up, after they all were after getting old, and they go back on one last mission together. I forget the title of it. And where you see then that just like any family, a band of brothers, their children all become part of it all as well. It's so lovely. Yeah. I remember Corran Horn, what made him so special. Well, first of all, that he was a little bit of a touch of the Force in it, because it really, they really are a bunch of war books. But there's this guy who's like, hey, I think I've got the Force. And then, Luke comes along and he ends up going to the Jedi Academy in I, Jedi, the kind of sideways companion novel. And that's one of my favorite EU novels as well.
Yeah, I, Jedi it's fascinating for a couple reasons. So if you guys don't know what we're talking about, is in the X-Wing series, you're introduced, basically the 2 main characters of the X-Wing novels are Wedge Antilles Wedge Antilles and Corran Horn. Those are your two effectively main characters throughout that, mostly your point of view characters. And Corran goes through it and he realizes that he actually is force sensitive along the way. And Luke offers, he's like, hey, I want you to come train as a Jedi at my Jedi Academy. And he's like, no, he's not interested. He's not interested. He's focused on being a pilot and the journey that has taken him. This has always been his dream. And it's not until much later that something happens in Corran's life to his family that he decides he needs to go and train. And what they do is they tie that in so perfectly to the entire Jedi Academy trilogy.
Yes.
But I, Jedi is the story of Corran Horn training as a Jedi, but it's all first person, which is why it's called I, Jedi, because it's one of the only Star Wars books that I can think of that's written that way.
Yeah, if not the only one. Yeah, and oh gosh, I'm gonna have to. I don't have enough hours in the day to reread all of these. This is bringing back so many memories. But yeah, and how exciting that was to see Corran go off and finally become a Jedi, and the fact that they were, again, they had a real story group, quote unquote, overseeing all that to make it all work and make it all flow together. And I think that's the other thing with the reason why we all love the EU, because they did pay attention to that. We never felt like we never had to cry foul and go, wait a second, they're trying to retcon something or anything. It was very rare that something like that would happen. And then you'd have magical moments, like that. And then as part of the Rogue Squadron, it was then you had the Race Squadron, and they were like the total goofballs.
They were the outcasts. They were the it's kind of like the Guardians of the Galaxy of Star Wars. That's how I think of it, now in reference to the MCU. It's these guys who are all kind of outcasts in one way or another. They're very funny. They're not like your typical group of heroes, but together they work extremely well.
Yeah.
And I've always, it's a tough choice, to be honest. I always would choose, I would always choose Rogue Squadron for sure, but it's sometimes tough because Wraith Squadron is just so fun and so different. And like we said before, very much like Rogue Squadron, it's completely focused on this whole new cast of characters that you get to know. Yeah. With the exception of Solo Command, Han Solo is fairly involved in that, but he's a side character. Yep. Definitely a side character in that.
Yeah. And that's also what makes them loads of fun too, is that when Han Solo comes in, like in Solo Command or Leia or Luke, in other words, you're seeing them from other people's point of view. To us, we know Luke Skywalker and all them. And for them, they're all like, oh, this is Han Solo. And they relate differently to them.
Yeah, exactly. And it's funny because in Rogue Squadron, if you remember, in like the very first scene, it's like the very first scene where Corran's in a simulator and he gets out and he's like, who was that guy who shot me down in the simulator? And he walks by and he thinks it's Luke Skywalker. Yeah. But it's actually Tycho Selchuk, because he doesn't know what Luke Skywalker looks like, but he's heard all these legendary tales about him.
Yes.
God, it's been way too long since I've read those.
I know I need to reread them too. Well, and or when they're looking up at someone like Han Solo, who's up a general, it's like that's their boss in a way too. It's not like just they're not Lando, who's friends with them, or Leia is like a senator. You don't relate to them the same way you would others.
Yeah, that's very true. That is very true. And I've got a couple super chats here. You guys are awesome. $5 from Rosetta Allen again. Just the last one before I go for now. I hope we can talk again soon. Teresa is an amazing woman. That is very true. Much love and respect to you both. Well, thank you, Rosetta. I appreciate you. And then $10 from Mr. John Talks in the house, because Ryan and Teresa are awesome. Aww. So thank you, John, and a lot of love for Teresa tonight from both John and Rosetta. So thank you, guys.
Well, thank you. And thank you, John. I've I started watching you back when you were like, what, about 1,000 followers, and you had that introduction about being all out and once upon a long time ago in Detroit somewhere. That was your intro. Thank you. That means a lot to me. That means a lot to me. Thank you.
Yeah. So thank you, Rosetta. Thank you, John. You guys are awesome too.
Yeah.
And yeah, John has been absolutely tearing it up lately, as a lot of us are, you know, with the Star Wars content right now. He's coming out with it all the time. Rosetta's seemingly always on streams. So she's banging away as well at everything. And speaking of someone else who's definitely putting out tons of videos and tons of streams lately, Mary Mayhem for $2 because John made a trend. Here we go.
There you are.
Thank you, Mary. And Mary was another one of those people who was on the John Talks train a very long time ago. So, and he's just blowing up.
Yeah, fair enough. Yeah, and Rosetta's leaving. Yeah, thank you very much, Rosetta. Much appreciated, and have a lovely night.
Yep, bye, Rosetta. Thanks for being here. But yeah, so where let's see, where were we? We were talking about Wraith Squadron, Rogue Squadron. But you know, we've talked a lot about our favorite parts of the expanded universe. Are there any parts? Because listen, when you have over 150 novels, you're going to have some bad ones. When you have, hundreds of comics, you're going to have some bad ones. What was your maybe least favorite parts of the expanded universe? And real quick, Rosetta, she lied. She's still here. She says, fine, one more, because God, you're so sweet to me. $2 from Rosetta. Thank you, Rosetta. Appreciate you.
Well, thank you, Rosetta. I look forward to getting to talk to you more on some streams. The courtship of Princess Leia.
Somebody just mentioned that, actually.
Despise that book. Despised it. It was the first EU book that I got that I was just like, this is garbage. I did not like it.
So why do you say that? What was it about it? Was it Han, like the whole premise of it? Was it Dathomir?
It was the whole plot. Yeah, the whole premise of it with Han and Leia acting like complete agents. I just did not buy that Leia would even begin to consider anybody else, even for politics, than Han. And then the way Han started acting like a moron and making a fool of himself. And then it turned into like Days of Our Lives, where she was like, oh, you're just embarrassing me. I thought you were better than that. And I'm like, oh, shut up, both of you. I just felt like they were very much out of character. So it was painful to read, I should say. I'm glad I didn't have to watch it.
See, I didn't actually mind it that much. So if you guys aren't aware, Courtship of Princess Leia takes place very soon after Return of the Jedi. The premise is obviously Han is courting Leia still. They obviously have a relationship, but it's tenuous. And even though in this new Disney canon, it only takes a year for them to defeat the Empire forever at Jakku or whatever it is. Yeah. That's not really how it works, because you look at the Empire, they literally control the entire galaxy. Just because they lose a Death Star and the Emperor and some of their biggest ships, they still are a war machine. They still control every sector of the galaxy almost. So as they're trying to keep on this rebellion, because it's still rebellion at this point. It's not even a government yet. They're looking for allies. They're looking for other planets to help them. And you have this little independent, well, not little, I mean, fairly large independent system of planets called Hapes, the Hapes cluster, a series of several planets that are controlled by the main planet of Hapes. And it's like a royal lineage. And the prince is interested in Leia's hand in marriage and is willing to, if Leia marries him, basically pledge Hapes' alliance to the rebels and the New Republic. So that is where the courtship of Princess Leia begins, because Prince Isolde is courting Leia, and Han at the same time is trying to hang on to her as well. So they have this basically this battle for her, and she obviously loves Han, but Han is temperamental. Han doesn't always keep a level head. Isolde is extremely charming and is offering a lot to not only Leia, but the entire New Republic. And as someone who grew up as royalty, Leia kind of understands this kind of arranged marriage and what it could do for everyone, like the greater good above herself. So
yeah.
I got it. I don't know. I didn't hate it as much as you did, Teresa. You hate it.
I know we're not supposed to talk about the differences between men and women, but I am a woman. I'm a chick. And you got to understand, I was using those 12-inch action figures with Han and Leia being all together and visiting my Barbie parties with Luke Skywalker. So you got to understand that I had a very, very strong attachment to that romance. So I wasn't thinking reasonably.
There you go. People are talking about an erotica novel where Leia hooks up with Wicket. That sounds like something Dave Filoni would probably be interested in, to be honest, based on his obsession with wolves and other furry things. So maybe that's a future animated series headed by Dave Filoni. But we've got a $5 super chat from Sith Lord. Hey Ryan, you've got something on your face. Yeah, thank you. Yeah, it's going away soon. Only like one more day left of it, so then it'll be gone.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. Well, yeah. Well, True Love won out anyway. So would it be a spoiler to say how it turned out with Isildur? Because we all know that Han and Leia ended up together. But I liked the resolution of what happened with Isildur.
Yeah, absolutely. Go ahead.
Oh, okay. Well, yeah, he ends up marrying the other chick, the Witch of Dathomir, or one of them, and they were Force sensitive. So all turned out well. That ended well. And they all were friends and everything was all fine then. But I just didn't enjoy the process.
Well, I actually think, like, when you think of courtship, it actually introduced, it introduced the Night Sisters, the Dathomiri witches, an entire new group of Force users that weren't Jedi or Sith or Jedi and Dark Jedi. It did definitely expand this universe that ended up being used in the Clone Wars. That is canon now. Yeah. It had some pretty big ramifications long term. Especially when you consider what a role Hapes played in all of the future stories. When you look at their role in the war, in New Jedi Order, Tenel Ka, her relationship with Jason, and how that plays out in Legacy of the Force. So much happened because of Dathomir and Hapes, and that's where both of those are introduced.
Yeah. Well, and I did like that part of it. So, like I said, I think it's just the chick in me. It's just like I just didn't like Han and Leia, because I did like the side story with Luke and finding it. Because you're right, they were really cool, and that was a really cool concept. Because of course there were other people that were Force users that weren't officially part of the Jedi, and it really expanded the world.
Yeah, absolutely. Mind Flayer says getting Matt on here and get his opinion. I'll have to talk to Matt. He's talking about Matt Wilkins, who is a huge expanded universe channel. A guy who's been doing it for a long time, just completely focused on the Star Wars expanded universe. And he's a really good dude and a friend of mine. But this is a patron stream with Teresa Martin. So maybe I'll bring that up next time I'm on Matt's channel or something. That'd be great.
Oh, yeah, that'd be lovely. Yeah. And I'm seeing a theme now, because I was going to say the other thing I didn't like was the books with Callista. And I'm thinking, oh man, I'm such a chick, because of course, Mara Jade. I didn't want Luke with anyone but Mara Jade. So maybe I'm not an authoritative figure or an objective figure when looking at what I didn't like.
Well, now, those, I would say that courtship is probably, there are definitely a lot of people that don't like courtship, but I would say that most people do not like the Callista trilogy, if you want to call it that.
No, Barbara Hambley.
Yeah, and that's, you've got, what is that? Like Children of the Jedi, Darksaber, and then Planet of Twilight. I think those are the three. Yeah, that you can kind of consider those a loose trilogy right there. Not in the same way that the Thrawn trilogy is a trilogy, but they're definitely, those three are definitely grouped together.
Yeah, and you're right that a lot of people just didn't like them at all, anyways, because I just remember it was just goofy. It was just bad. I don't know if I want to reread it, but maybe I need to double check a summary, because I do tend to, if I really don't like something, I just kind of wipe it out of my mind.
Well, I want to read Darksaber again, because that one was kind of interesting. Mm-hmm. And obviously we have something now that's called the Darksaber. There was a Darksaber before we heard of the Darksaber in the Clone Wars.
Oh yeah.
And Darksaber is a novel about, because you might get confused if you search like Wikipedia for Darksaber, you come up with this novel about a Hutt who builds a super weapon that's a Death Star laser, or is attempting to. Because he just built like the laser portion, and it kind of looked like just a lightsaber. So that's why it was called Darksaber. But yeah, I'm trying to think of my least favorite. So did you read Black Fleet Crisis?
Yeah, I didn't despise it. I just felt it was worthless.
Yes, yeah, I agree. I did not like. Yeah, thanks for stopping in, High Ground Master. But I agree that a Black Fleet Crisis to me had no lasting impact on anything. They had this side story about Luke's mother, but it wasn't really his mother.
Such a fake out.
Yeah, and we knew it though, at least for me, because the time I read it, I knew that wasn't his mother.
Oh, you know yeah, because we'd already knew about Padme.
Right. So it was like, it wasn't a good read for me. There seemed to be no stakes in it. And it's also like highly descriptive of military tactics, which a lot of people could really like that. For me, I like some of that. Like, I like the way Michael A. Stackpole describes dogfights and the way battles happen. I don't like the crazy in detail about military tactics in Black Fleet Crisis.
Yeah, we're not watching a documentary. As long if it's part of the excitement, if it's part of the story, that's one thing. That we don't need to get out of anytime you have to feel like you have to get out a manual to figure out what's going on in a story. There's too much a detail.
Yeah, exactly. So that just wasn't for me. I didn't mind. So I know. So there's something that I love that you have not read yet, Teresa, and that's called Fate of the Jedi. And you are gonna kick yourself for not reading it earlier once you do read it. But something that's so great about it is that it goes back, and this is why the Expanded Universe is so awesome, because everything is so connected to each other. They go back and they talk about so many things that happen, from things that happen in the Callista trilogy, from things that happen in the entire Bantam era, that, and plus all the things that happen in NJO and Legacy of the Force. They connect it all in Fate of the Jedi. And
really?
So if you're an Expanded Universe person, there's just constant little nuggets popping up, and it's really cool.
Oh my gosh! Well, yeah. In our pre-conversation, I had mentioned that my career really, really ramped up around 2005, and sadly, I gave up a lot of recreational reading, and that's so I just, gosh darn it, I can't wait to dig back into what I missed.
Yeah, well, you're reading the Bane trilogy right now for EU Book Club.
Yes,
and that is awesome.
It hit me like a sledgehammer, because I had heard some of y'all say, "Oh, it's good. Oh yeah, we got to read it," and that's what people voted for. But man, from the first time when I picked up that book, I couldn't put it down. It was hard because I was with family and friends, and she's going to kick my butt because she's in the chat for saying this. No, I enjoyed spending time with you, but I didn't want to put it down. It's like we were the card game. It started out with this big card game where you just totally see how this guy who's going to eventually become Darth Vader is like that. He is so Sith, and it's like, how would a Sith play a game of poker? That's what it was for like 2 full chapters. It's a treat. I don't know what's going to happen. I genuinely don't. And I've controlled myself in not looking up spoilers. So, and it's only the first book, Path of Destruction.
Yes. Yeah. And we are doing, so I saw somebody ask in chat. So we are doing that review on a week from today, actually. So it'll be January 11th. I think it'll probably be right here on this channel. I haven't officially determined that yet, but it'll be right around this time. So 5 or 6 p.m. Pacific, so 8 or 9 Eastern. And we'll be talking about Path of Destruction. So.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, Be There or Be Square. Those are always great nights. It's always a big EU love fest. It's EU Woodstock. It's great.
Yeah.
Without all the drinking and, well, wait, there is a lot of drinking, at least on others' parts. So I should.
It depends. Yeah, it depends. Well, and this is actually a kind of easy one for me because I actually did a review for Path of Destruction. I don't know, like maybe a month or 2 ago on my channel. Because I just happened to do a reread of it, so I could do a review of something, and because those are some of my favorite books. So, and if you are someone who doesn't necessarily like to read but really likes Audible, they are available on Audible, unabridged version, which is the only real way you can do it. You can't do abridged novels. You can't get a 14-hour book condensed into 3 hours. You just don't get it.
Yeah.
At least in my opinion.
Yeah, and I especially can't imagine with this one because you really do start to get into his head. And as he ends up going to the Sith Academy, and he's starting to learn like all the phrases of the Sith. Like they have a lot of mantras, the same way that the Jedi do, but they're like the opposite. There is no peace. There is only passion. And you start
through passion, I gain strength. Through strength, I gain power. Through power, I gain victory. Through victory, my chains are broken.
Yes, exactly. And as you're reading it and as they're meditating on it, you're like, am I being brainwashed to be a Sith and start to hate the Jedi? Because the way they describe it is like, this is the great wisdom.
Yeah, and it's great because it's really one of the few, we're so focused on the Jedi and the Sith are always the enemy, but this is one of the few books in the expanded universe that it is focused completely on the Sith, and you're rooting for Darth Bane, even though he is, by the end, you truly see that he is the protagonist. However, he is evil, right? Yeah. He's an evil guy, but he is the dark side of the Force, and you learn so much about the Sith. And this is written by Drew Karpyshyn. And if you don't know who Drew Karpyshyn is, if you like KOTOR, Drew Karpyshyn wrote the story of KOTOR. He developed that lore. So that is why he's so invested in the Sith and in that era of the Old Republic.
Also, so like he's the resident expert on it all.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yep.
That's
and
cool.
Darth Bane was a huge success. So they didn't initially plan it to be a real trilogy like it was, or at least not that quickly. And they were like, hey, after the success of the first one, like, hey, can you get another one out like, in a couple months? And he's like, I guess. So he got the second book done really quick. I think the second one's definitely the weakest of all of them. And the third one's a little better. But Path of Destruction is incredible. And it's, it's a standalone book by itself. It doesn't have to be part of a trilogy, but once you get to, you're going to enjoy reading it, I think, especially because you haven't experienced it before.
No, for sure. Well, and already they're planting the seeds of the title of the second book, The Rule of Two, where you see Bane, he's starting to figure, wait a second, some of this stuff isn't working out. They're just in too much competition with each other. So it's loads of fun, loads of corruption.
Yeah, and we have a little argument going on in chat about Sith philosophy already, about the rule of two. Yes.
There you go. And that's what makes it so awesome. Oh my gosh, they're fighting.
That is true. And
I love those nerdy fights.
And it is an inherently flawed system. However, it was kind of necessary. And if you look at what happened in the end, it kind of worked. When you look at the fulfillment of, fulfillment of that 1,000 years of the rule of two, it wasn't always followed to the letter. God, I got something in my eye. It wasn't always followed to the letter. And sometimes people weren't particular about the two aspect of it, but for the most part it was, and it led to the downfall of the Republic and the downfall of the Jedi Order, at least for a time.
Absolutely. So. Yeah.
But it definitely is flawed, because all it takes is one mistake, and you're gone, or your apprentice is gone, and then you're done.
Yeah. Gotta ultimately, inherently a flawed system, the whole thing, but I love the fact that it's opened up. It just has made the world of Star Wars even wider and wider in a good way.
Oh yeah. Absolutely.
I think I wrote out in a tweet, where's this book been my whole life? I just missed it.
Yeah.
Because
it's a different feeling. It is a different feeling book for sure.
Yeah. I know we're kind of going a little bit in the Old Republic, but one of my favorite comics as well was The Union. I don't know. Did you read that?
Was that where they get married? Is that one?
Yeah, and that's where it's the chick coming out in me. But
yeah,
yes,
sure.
It was all about their wedding, Mara Jade and Luke, and it was fun because it wasn't originally as a graphic novel. A lot of these came out first as series. And we were all like, "What wedding dress is she gonna wear?" And
there were like 3 people asking that, and they were all women. Teresa, I was not one of the people asking that.
Okay, so yes, it's called Union. You will get all the wedding porn you need. It is, it's almost too much. Even I must admit. I thought, especially Mara, was slightly out of character in the big wedding because I thought she was a little too sappy. On the other hand, it's wedding porn, so yeah. Yeah,
like I didn't buy Mara Jade like freaking out about what kind of dress she's gonna wear.
Yeah,
you know what I mean, I just didn't buy it. But it was nice, you get to see that happen. It's strange that happened in a comic form like that. Mm-hmm. That's such a big event. Would happen like that, and then just in the novel, the next time you see them, they're just married. They're just together.
Yeah, exactly. And I actually think it probably worked well. It was billed as a big event, almost like with that infamous Batman number 50 was supposed to be, but the wedding actually happened in this one, and it was loads of fun, and they had a little bit of an adventure behind. You also got to get a little bit of the lore for where they had 2 weddings. They had a Jedi wedding, which was like what the Jedi would do when they're married. This is, I think, before we learned that they didn't really usually get married. And then they had their secular wedding, and that was, and it was it was all televised, like a royal wedding within the universe. Yeah,
like a little public and private service.
Yeah, exactly. And there was some action in it, but that was also one of my favorite ones because it was such a big event. And if I'm correct, the book afterwards when they're married, isn't that the one that Timothy Zahn did that, right? What was the name of that one? They go on an adventure together, a mission, I think.
Yeah, so he did. So it was Spectre of the Past, Vision of the Future is when, and Vision of the Future, that's where, what's it called? That's where it's like that Luke proposes, right? Effectively, that says he loves her.
Oh yes, I know.
Yeah, and I forget which one was right after that.
Yeah, well, in order it goes, after the Vision of the Future, then it has their wedding. And then, I do remember it was the Timothy Zahn book, and it was like the first year of their marriage, or set within that. And so it was a little more mature than Union. Union was fluff. The following one, it did kind of show how they both adjusted to being a couple, being married, while doing their Jedi thing. So that was also a very good one.
Yeah, because like Vision of the Future came out in late 90s. And then I feel like right after that is where we jumped into New Jedi Order, which at that point they've established that they've been together for a little bit and that Mara's sick in the beginning of that.
Correct.
So I don't remember what book that is though, that they...
Yeah, the Zahn book came out later. It came out, I think, during the New Jedi Order, but it was just set chronologically. Yeah, because the next time we saw them, she was sick.
There it is. Yeah, Survivor's Quest. That's right, Survivor's Quest.
There you are, Survivor's Quest.
Thank you.
Yeah. But I would highly recommend, if you haven't, going ahead and reading Survivor's Quest right after Union, if you want to read Union, because it shows just how they take that next step as they're learning, and then you go into the new Jedi Order, and not just is she very sick, but the Yuzhong Vong are coming, and they're coming to kill everybody. Space Nuts are coming, so yeah.
Yeah, well, and actually, it's funny. Lethal and I we actually just recorded something, Lethal Lightning and I, for what's it called? That little channel that I work for, Geeks and Gamers. Geeks and Gamers. We recorded something about New Jedi Order and about the Yuzhong Vong earlier this morning. I still need to edit that and get that up there. But just talking about how the Yuzhong Vong were such a unique enemy and how, like, what New Jedi Order did to kind of change Star Wars a little bit. It was a really good discussion. So I'm looking forward to getting that out there to everybody.
Oh, yeah. That's great. Yeah.
And those me and Lethal try to do one of those every couple of weeks, just a little EU talk between us that we put up on Geeks and Gamers. But kind of get everybody get everybody a little bit of that on the big Geeks and Gamers channel.
Yeah, those are great. Well, and I like all the content, of course, on Geeks and Gamers, but I do like the informative.
Even drunk 3PO videos.
Well, you gotta love him, don't you? He takes one for the team all the time.
He does, yeah.
Yeah, literally. Yeah, he's lovely. But the informative, it seems to me like lately, correct me if I'm wrong, there's been a little, I say informative, maybe that's the wrong word, but things like what you're doing with Lethal Lightning and just a few other things that are kind of explaining different aspects of Star Wars, and I'm enjoying that a lot. I think it's good. So watch them, and of course watch their channels. Advertisement now, because they do really good.
Yeah, absolutely, and yet we're definitely expanding the horizons there on Geeks and Gamers, getting some different content up, and it's awesome. And of course, Drunk 3PO's biggest fan is in chat, Anna, that Star Wars girl. I'm just glad that Drunk's not here right now to see this, because he would probably screenshot it, record this video, put it on Twitter, be like, hey, everybody, that Star Wars girl loves me. Look at this. It's the happiest moment of my life. So I imagine that's what would happen if he was here right now.
Well, now that you've said that, I'm just after screenshotting it, and I'll be sure to save it for him to make him to make him happy.
There you go. Oh yeah. Well, that's all right. He had a video up on Geeks and Gamers today, so make sure you guys check that out. He talks about Nintendo World and the leaks around that. So that could use a few more views. So everybody go check that out on Geeks and Gamers.
Yeah. I saw you all teasing each other over that.
Yeah. Oh, there's Anna again. Yeah. Drunk is, hey, I know Drunk. He likes the attention. He likes the attention. Actually, Anna, if you haven't yet, you need to get some Drunk 3PO leggings. He's all about those leggings. If you bought those, he would probably lose his shit. So just if you want to make him go crazy, that would probably be it. That'd probably be it.
Boy. Oh gosh. Sorry. Himself said, Vertical Horizons. If you say Drunk's name 3 times, he will appear. Oh gosh.
We'll see. Well, I haven't seen him yet, and we've said it 3 times.
Yeah.
So here's hoping that that's not true. I think he's probably drunk watching football. Literally drunk. Yeah, if I was him, that's what I would be doing. But yeah. So Kinel is wearing the leggings now. You are a liar. I am not. I'm not. I'm wearing sweatpants. I'm wearing sweatpants, not leggings. Don't lie. But what were we talking about? So I talked about my least favorite parts. I do think like I was talking about earlier, it's so vast, and you don't consider the games normally part of it. But the the games to me were such a great experience, and that is why the Jedi Academy series, Dark Forces 2, Jedi Knight, Jedi Outcast, all those, that's where Kyle Katarn was introduced, whose name is known for everyone as kind of the Chuck Norris of Star Wars. That's where he's from. You got KOTOR, where Revan is from. These characters that are like legit, not just EU, but like Star Wars fans in general know who those people are.
Yes. Yeah. Oh yeah. Kyle Katarn. He was a legend. I never played these games, but I knew all about him.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And we didn't get enough of him in the EU. I always would have wanted to have something else. We've got a super chat from the Substitute 3 for £5. I hated the Vong series. Oh, my heart. It was that moment that they said the Star Wars Galaxy had no more villains in it. Or it was the moment that they said the Star Wars Galaxy had no more villains in it. Well, so the story with the reason the Vong came to be was because in the development of New Jedi Order, the prequels were starting to come out too. Phantom Menace was also coming out in '99. George Lucas said that because they originally had pitched for these villains to be dark side Force users, George Lucas specifically said you cannot have dark side Force users. So they had to kind of change their tone and give something that he would approve of. And they went for these extragalactic invaders, the Yuzong Vong, who are immune to the Force, who had this religious fervor against technology, who used bio weaponry. They had like organic equipment. They grew armor, they grew weapons, they grew ships. And it was very intriguing to me. It was something different. And it's a moment where the Star Wars galaxy kind of unites against a greater threat. You've got these people fighting each other. You still have the Imperial Remnant and the New Republic fighting each other. Or I think at that point they're kind of at a peace, right? But they're still obviously hostile towards each other. Yeah. But they have to team up, and that's when the Galactic Alliance is formed. And yeah, I really enjoyed it.
Yeah. Well,
but I can see there's some people that don't like the Vong at all.
Yeah, well, it really did take a dark turn, and I can imagine how it could get a little difficult to watch. I can definitely see that point of view.
Yeah.
Now, when you mentioned with Kyle Katarn, the real person behind getting the Death Star plans, and was it Jan and. In Rogue One, they kind of
yeah, it's a gender swap Kyle Katarn and Jan Orris. It's absolute garbage. And that's one issue I had with Rogue One. And I will say, for the vast majority of Star Wars fans, it doesn't ruin any of your characters, because most people probably have not played Kyle Katarn stealing the Death Star plans.
Yeah.
But for those of you that did, you might have been like, what is this crap?
Precisely. Well, and even the person that he, the rebel, the agent that he worked with, what was it? I'm looking at her name, Jan Orrs.
Jan Orrs.
Yeah, very similar.
Yeah, Jyn Erso, Jan Orrs. And I can't believe, Jan Orrs was an Asian female, and I can't believe they put a white person in there for Jyn Erso. I can't believe it.
Yeah, they're progressive until they're not.
Yeah. People are saying the Vong may be a little, not Star Wars, it felt a little like Star Trek. I kind of agree, a little bit different. But yeah. I also agree with this statement. The EU stuff may have started to look stale, but people have such different opinions, like we kind of talked about. So you've got one person who says, before the Vong stuff, the EU may have started to look stale because it was kind of similar adventures, kind of one after another. Everyone stays safe. But then someone else here, James, for $2, thank you, James, says the Vong invasion caused me to dip out of the EU. So you definitely have some different opinions here. Me personally, I loved it, but I know that there's a lot of people who did not. So very split.
Yeah. But as we said earlier, it didn't mean that if you liked it or didn't like it, you weren't suddenly a sexist, racist, bigot, horrible human being who's not a true Star Wars fan. We all just accepted it. Oh, you didn't like it. Okay. It didn't become your obsession.
Yeah, exactly. It was just good arguments. I heated arguments. I mean, like they all kind of are. Whoops, I mistyped that.
Yeah. Without the and even now, we can all agree and disagree agreeably.
Yeah, for sure. It's just it's fun to talk and argue about this stuff. And that was one of the things, although I obviously there's some things about Mandalorian I really don't like. For the most part, we're arguing about Star Wars and lore and things like that. We're not arguing over politics or woke stuff or anything like that for the most part in Mandalorian, which is a little bit refreshing. So yeah, I see Baby Yoda in the chat. Yes, I see that.
Oh, Baby Yoda.
God, that's what I want to say. I want to see a Mandalorian where instead of shooting IG-11, he pushes IG-11 aside and just Baby Yoda right between the eyes. That's how the series begins. You would have sold me right on. I would have become a Disney shill if they would have done it.
No, gosh, what would we do with our lives? I spent half of my break making an army of little Baby Yoda toys for all my friends because they saw the one I posted online and everyone wants one now. So I'm sending them all over the world.
That's awesome. I'm sure that's a huge they missed out so big on that. The idea that in April or whatever, when these toys come out, I don't care how many pre-orders they have. I don't care. There's no way that the hype is going to be the same when they release these in April that it was right in the beginning of this.
Nope, not at all. And I have a list. I'm sitting here crocheting and stuffing and sewing little Baby Yodas for all the friends that want to do it. Yeah. They could be making money. Every single one of those people. It's absurd. I can't believe that the marketing machine that they are, they allowed themselves to be caught off guard like that.
Yeah. And it's interesting because we did have a few leaks. They didn't get super publicized like the Rise of Skywalker ones, but you didn't have these massive leaks about the Mandalorian that we had with the Rise of Skywalker. And it makes me wonder, the two Disney movies that have had these huge, or the two Disney Star Wars movies that have had these huge leaks have both been J.J. Abrams, The Force Awakens and The Rise of Skywalker. So it really makes me confident that some of these big leaks are coming from Bad Robot. Because that's the only thing that makes sense to me.
Oh, you see, I love backstage mean girls with billion-dollar franchises. Well, I think there's for sure something going on because no one was quote unquote disloyal on the Mandalorian set, and I also find that seems to be a genuine sense of joy that was in a lot of the Mandalorian cast in all of their interviews and in their social media that wasn't quite present with the others.
Yeah, it's interesting. I saw somebody ask me in chat earlier. I missed it as I was going by, but asked me if they think Favreau's trying to fit Mandalorian more into the EU. I don't necessarily think so. I do think that they're trying to do more honor to fans and like older lore. I do think they're intentionally trying to put in Legends lore in there. I'm not a big fan of that. I wish they just keep it separate at this point after everything they've done. But I do think that they are trying to do that a little bit. But that it's tough to tell. It's also the era that it's set in. It's 5 years after Return of the Jedi or somewhere around there. So it's not way in the sequel trilogy like it is now. But yes, and somebody, Isaac, I agree. The Virgin sequels versus the Chad prequels. Yes, this is showing everybody right now. Everybody has much more love for the prequels now than they did 5 years ago. I think that is for sure. I shouldn't say everyone. A lot of people did before, but more people have love for the prequels now than they did 5 years ago.
Yeah. We all had issues with parts of it, but it didn't rip our souls out to watch. It wasn't a soul-killing franchise prequel trilogy, and it was still loads of fun.
Well, and I think especially with all the drama and all this nonsense that's coming out right now, I think you can look at it and you can clearly see that whether all these leaks are true or not, that these are made by a committee, right? It's not like someone's vision. It's a committee vision, whether it's Disney or Lucasfilm or whoever. And they're picking parts out of it. They can't have it in it for this reason. They're putting stuff in because they think this reason. When you look at George and you look at the prequels, they have their fault. They have their flaws for sure. I don't think really anyone can deny that. However, you also can't deny that it's one man's singular vision that he didn't allow to be affected by anything else. George had a story he wanted to tell. We all had an idea of how that story should have played out or what we thought should have happened. But the bottom line, this was George's story and he told it. He had enough money to stay independent. He didn't have corporations telling him what he could or could not do. And that's the big difference. That is one person's vision, whereas you cannot say that about the sequel trilogy at all.
Yes. And of all the criticisms you might hear about the prequel trilogies, you will also never hear anything about it being inconsistent, and that it was a coherent story, as you've said.
And he did some things. Fit Karen in the chat just said prequels had balls, and yeah.
Yes,
it was new. It was innovative. Yeah, it was awesome. Some cheesy romance and dialogue here and there, but you were sold on Anakin's rise and fall to the dark side. Yeah,
absolutely.
100%. And I do think that's one of the struggles when you have something so beloved. It's not something we have a lot of the time. Is you have the place that you're going without what came before it. So then everyone has their idea of how it came to be, and when it's not exactly what you thought, it may turn you off a little bit. So I think that was part of people's issue with it.
Yeah. The only criticism that I think is valid is the criticism of when Anakin turned. And it happened just a teeny bit too fast there in the middle of the movie or toward the third act. Either you bought that scene or you didn't.
I could have done with Revenge of the Sith being like 20 minutes longer.
Yeah.
To be honest. And like, I don't know if you've seen or I don't know if you've read the novelization of Revenge of the Sith.
Yes.
But that is one of the lost gems of the expanded universe. That you have such a deeper like appreciation for everything that was going on.
Yes.
Yeah. Anakin's turn, Anakin's like what's going on in his mind, what's going on in Obi-Wan's mind, all throughout leading up to their duel and everything. It's crazy. It's so good.
Yeah, it's one of the rare situations where almost, and I say almost, the book was better than the movie. That the book adaptation of the movie was almost better than the movie. Not quite there, but
yeah, you just have so much. It has to go together, right? You wouldn't be able to feel what you're feeling with that novelization if you didn't see it on screen. If you didn't see this scene happen, and feel the emotion, the power behind that. Yeah. And evidently it's Anna's fault. According to my mom, the sequel trilogy being sucky is my fault because I didn't wrote something better. Sorry, everyone. Well, there you go. Everyone, hashtag blame Anna. Blame that Star Wars girl for the sequel trilogy.
Well, how did you manage that? Weren't you, you've said yourself, not quite you were still in school. Let me just put it to you that way. You had a lot of power for a little girl.
No excuses. No excuses.
Oh, no excuses. Okay. No excuses. Blame Anna. Okay, there I am. I'm an obedient person. I went ahead and did that. Another aspect that with the prequels versus the sequel trilogy, I'm going to slightly presume to get slightly inside of John Williams' head. John Williams is a master. The soul that was in the music from the prequel trilogy versus the sequel is night and day. I can't even hum any tune that was written specifically for the sequel trilogy. But oh my gosh, the prequel trilogy was masterful. All three of them. I see them all together. You had the Duel of the Fates. You had Anakin's theme, which was an inversion of the Imperial March. You even had an inversion of the Emperor's theme. They took it from a minor to a major and the different intervals. The way that John Williams, with his music, twisted everything and led us to the dark side. Amazing. Some of his best work.
Yeah, and like the opening scene of like the opening scene where you pan down on Coruscant and you see Coruscant, and then you see, oh, there's a ship, and then it's opened up to this huge battle, and you immediately
yes,
like, that music that plays right there, you're immediately drawn into it. And yeah, it's definitely memorable. And maybe it's just because I don't care. That could be it. That it's just because I don't care about the sequel trilogy. Maybe if people are invested in those characters and that story, maybe they feel a little more in the music. But I totally agree with you.
Yeah. What can I say? Yes, thank you for agreeing with me.
You're welcome.
With the memories. Now I want to get out the score. And I've played a lot of that music too. And so
yeah, me too.
Yeah, and you've never I can't say I've never in an orchestra played anything from the sequel trilogy, but I've definitely done it for the other ones, and so it's I just can't even imagine trying to even analyze the music. No one talks about it in the classical music world the way we do about the other ones. So yeah, it's boring.
Yeah,
boring and flat.
A lot of people spamming Duel of Fates for sure.
Duel of Fates.
Regardless of what you think of Episode 1, there's nobody that doesn't see that and hear that and be like, oh my god. And that I think that's probably the best lightsaber duel we've ever had in Star Wars. I think you can say that whether like emotionally, if you got more from Return of the Jedi or Empire Strikes Back or Obi-Wan Anakin, when you look at choreography and everything like that, Duel of the Fates is incredible, with Obi-Wan, Qui-Gon, and Ray Park's Darth Maul.
Yeah. Well, Ray Parks gave a tour de force performance in that whole duel.
Yeah, when you look at that and then you compare it to the lightsaber duels we have in the sequel trilogy, it's an absolute joke. It's just it's disgusting, to be honest. Yeah. The fact that you can't even compare those.
So I think someone pointed out that watching the fights between Rey and himself, Kylo Ren, was like watching a bunch of kids at Halloween playing lightsaber fights, except the kids playing lightsaber fights and Halloween did it better.
Ooh, yeah, that's probably true.
I mean, give me 2 5-year-olds with a toy lightsaber over what I saw.
Honestly, you're not even wrong, to be quite honest.
No, I'm not even. For once, I'm not doing hyperbole.
I did have someone in chat ask about if I was sad when Sword of the Jedi books we lost them. Yes, and I would love to see them continued. And at the end of this, and we're getting close to the end, guys, but I will say we have to look forward to with the EU. But we just got a super chat here from Goodman for $5. Thank you very much. Hello, feel somewhat bad. I did not know the EU until 2013. As a kid, did not know. Hey, do not feel bad. You can't, if you don't know something because you weren't exposed to it, whatever, it's not a big deal, right? And you shouldn't feel bad either way. But now you know. And I am happy for you, because now you have this grand universe of real good Star Wars to experience, which is awesome. And you're not alone. There's tons of people who are just getting into it right now. So enjoy it.
Yeah, you've got quite the treat waiting for you.
Yes, for sure. And over a couple months ago, we finished up a billboard campaign fundraising for Twin Suns Foundation. Twin Suns Foundation does a lot of good stuff, getting books and promoting reading and writing for young people, specifically the Star Wars Expanded Universe. They give away books to Children's Hospital, things like that. But, community centers, libraries, fill them with books from the Star Wars Expanded Universe. And we funded 2 billboards that are going to go up right outside Lucasfilm, asking for the continuation of Legends as a alternate timeline, 2 timelines. Disney canon and the Star Wars expanded universe continued. So maybe there is hope to one day get that Sword of the Jedi series. But those billboards should be going up sometime in April. So
nice.
Look out for those. And then we have a £5 super chat again from the Substitute 3. Thank you very much. Technically speaking, the best duel was Obi-Wan versus Anakin, but the Maul, Qui-Gon, and Obi-Wan was a good fight. Listen, I think that emotionally that means so much when you watch that. But I personally, just for me, from a technical standpoint, when you're looking at the choreography and everything, Duel of Fates is so good. But yeah, you're right. This fight right here, you can't get past the emotion and what it meant. And you had everything was building up leading to that. Everyone knew this was going to happen. So,
yeah.
But what was I going to say? I was going to say something else. It was going to be something really inspired. Maybe the best thing I've ever said in my life. And now I forget. Now it's stuck in the top of my head. But we are going to get wrapped. Oh, if you guys haven't, that's what I was going to do. I'm going to put Teresa's Martin link in chat. Her link is in the description of the video. I'm also going to put it right here. Check out Teresa. I should have been doing this all day long, but we've just been talking so much. But I just put her link in chat. So please, guys, check her out. If you haven't subscribed to my channel yet, either if it's your first time here, if you don't mind, press that subscribe button. We're pretty close to 5,800, actually. Let's see where we're at right now. I was pretty close to 5,800 subs before the stream started. And we're at 5,803. So thank you to everybody past 5,800 subs. We're just going to keep this thing rolling. But make sure you guys do check out Teresa Martin.
Thank you very much. Much appreciated.
Yeah, no problem. But we are going to get close to wrapping it up, Teresa. But so why don't you give a final statement on what the EU kind of means to you and what you're excited about it going forward?
Well, the EU means to me that good stories can never really die. That when you have people tapped into the soul of the story the way you do with a lot of the EU writers, that you cannot help but have a beautiful story come forward. And that is, to me, no matter what Disney says, I know they have the right to say what canon is. But to me, the sequels are the EU. And it's glorious. Yeah.
Awesome. Very well said, Teresa. That kind of gave me chills when you said it like that. But I totally agree. That it is, we can't decide what official canon is. And you can have your head canon if you want. But to me, I think you should just choose what you like. And to me, I choose the EU. I choose the expanded universe. I choose now Legends. I know that it was branded that name and a lot of us rejected Legends for a long time. But at the end of the day, that's what it is now. And if we ever get any more of it, it will be under that Legends banner. So I choose Legends. I choose the expanded universe as the Star Wars that I want to experience. And yeah, I agree with TT. You can't, only the creator can decide what is canon or not. Yeah, exactly. But that doesn't mean that we can't enjoy this just as much as everything else. And so many people are getting into the EU now, which is just absolutely fantastic. Because they're hungry for it. My Nerdy Home's in chat right now. It says, great stream. Can't wait to start reading my books. See you later. Cheers. Yeah, because she is getting into the EU now.
Oh, lovely.
Yeah, so many people. Every day I get DMs. Every day I get people on my, on my streams and everything saying that they're just getting into it, which is awesome, which is freaking awesome. But I do want to thank Teresa for coming by and talking. 2 hours went by really fast. Yeah, 2 hours went by really fast. And like I said, she is my top tier patron, and she has been a patron almost ever since I opened my Patreon. So she is at that master level and has been doing it ever since I started. And I appreciate her just like I appreciate all my patrons. So thank you, Teresa.
Well, thank you. Well, and thank you for having this tier. I'm too old to play with my Barbies anymore, but being able to support good content like what Ryan does, it's worth the money to donate. What is it for? What you can get for less than what you can get for a pizza. Get some quality entertainment every month, every day. go for it. And I'll be your little champion here. It's worth it. It really is worth it. If you think about it, what do you get? We get, not only we get the perks for being patrons, and there's loads of extra things. For example, getting to be on a stream like I am. This could be you, but also supporting his channel. What do you do? 2-3 a day, and you do great companion material to things like The Mandalorian and other aspects of Star Wars. So that's my little pitch for you, Ryan.
Well, thank you, Teresa. See, you're paying me, and so not only are you paying me, but you're actually paying me. So that means a lot, Teresa, and I do appreciate that.
You're welcome.
That's awesome. But speaking of my patrons, like I do at the beginning and end of every stream, let me thank all of them real quick. So Teresa Martin, Mexican Iron Man, Lost Jedi 22, Mary Mayhem, what an ass, what a bitch, what a cuck. I love saying that name. I love saying this name too. George Big Dick Lucas. And someone who just sent another super chat, Rosetta Allen, Bionic Belly Button, RC from the NYC, Riff Magos, Thick Karen, The Geek Blend, Huge Ass, Seth Saunders, Kyle Hopkins, Alex McCarthy, Trev Fishbein, Geeky Candy, Wesley Semple, Mark Steven. Thank you guys so much. You guys are awesome. And we do have another super chat from Rosetta for $2. Sneaks back in, drops a super just for fun. Well, thank you, Rosetta. You are awesome. You're awesome. And David Livingston, that is the kind of stuff that blows me away. My favorite Star Wars channel. That's insane. I never, ever thought anyone would be saying that to me. So at least I assume. I'm just going to assume you're saying it to me and it wasn't responding to someone else in chat. Because that makes me feel good. And that's pretty cool.
Yeah, he's talking about drunk 3PO.
Oh, no. Hell no, he is not. That's it. That's not true. That's impossible. Yeah. But hey, thank you to everybody in chat who's been here the whole time. Things that you can do tonight. I know that Mary Mayhem is about to go live with Shenanigans. If you guys are looking for just a fun laugh to have fun tonight, so go check out Mary's channel. The link to her channel is in the description of the video, like all of my $5 and above tier patrons. So you can check out her description and go to her channel and wait for her live show that's coming out in a couple here. David Livingston says yes to you, RK. Well, thank you, man. And Christopher Barker. Oh man, that's funny. That is funny. But hey, thank you guys. You are awesome. Go check out Mary's stream. And I hope you guys have an awesome rest of your day. Oh, I will be here tomorrow, as always, for my Sunday Star Wars stream, 4:30 Pacific, 7:30 Eastern. Join me right back here, and we'll talk about everything going on with Disney Star Wars, a train wreck that is The Rise of Skywalker, and how it all relates back to the EU growing. So thank you guys. Teresa, thank you once again. I appreciate you so much.
Okay, thank you. See you all in cyberspace.
Yep. And until next time, we will talk to you.